My wife gathered her whole family to watch as she handed me divorce papers on my birthday, no less. And with a smug grin, she said, "Surprise. I'm leaving you for someone who isn't such a letdown." Her dad let out a laugh like he was watching a comedy. They actually said they never believed she'd marry someone so beneath her. And right there, they had champagne ready to toast what they thought would be my breakdown. But I just smiled, calmly signed the papers, and walked out without a word. Now, here we are, exactly 7 months later. She's curled up asleep in her car parked outside my house, sending me frantic messages, begging to talk. A part of me still can't wrap my head around the fact that all of this really happened. Just a heads up, this story's gonna be a long one. So, last Friday, I turned 33. Not exactly a big birthday, but my wife Amanda, soon-to-be ex, said she had something special planned for it. She'd been acting overly cheerful the whole week before. Always glued to her phone, giggling to herself, being real secretive. At the time, I thought maybe she was throwing together a surprise party or trying to lift our spirits after the rough patch we'd been stuck in. Things between us hadn't been explosive or anything, but it was that heavy, quiet kind of tension that somehow feels worse. We'd been married 6 years. Met in college, she was this gorgeous business major from a wealthy family, and I was the broke kid working 3 jobs just to scrape by. One of those classic opposites attract situations, I guess. Her family never really liked me. Her dad, Preston, yeah, seriously, like a villain out of some old action movie, always found a way to remind me where I came from during every holiday dinner. Her mom would give me that sweet smile and ask how my little job was going, even after I moved up to team lead. Meanwhile, Amanda kept showing off our apartment on Instagram. It wasn't fancy, but it was the best we could do while I worked overtime trying to save up for a house. Her captions always had that making the best of it vibe, like we were barely getting by. She'd compare our life to her cousin Tessa's, who married into money and lived in a mansion. Lately, Amanda had been spending more time with her folks, coming home late from so-called work events, sometimes wearing cologne that definitely wasn't mine. She'd get these texts that lit up her face, something I hadn't seen her do when looking at me in months. I wasn't blind. I had my doubts. Still, I kept telling myself if I just pushed harder, maybe got that next promotion, things would turn around. So then comes my birthday. I'd worked all day because, well, adulthood, and came home to an empty apartment. Amanda had texted me to meet her at her parents' house for my surprise. Right off the bat, that felt off. Her parents' place was the last spot I'd want to celebrate anything. But I figured maybe she was trying to patch things up between me and her family. I showed up to their massive house in the suburbs. Amanda answered the door with this strange smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Inside, the living room was packed. Her parents, her sister Claire, a few cousins, and some family friends I vaguely recognized from past holidays. They were all holding champagne glasses. As soon as I walked in, the room got quiet. Amanda turned to me and said, "Jake, we've got something special for your birthday this year." Her dad let out this little snicker, not a real laugh, just that smug sound that made my skin crawl. For a second, I thought maybe they actually got me a gift, maybe even a car. Yeah, dumb, I know. Then Amanda pulled out a manila envelope from behind her back. For half a second, I hoped it was plane tickets or something fun. But then she said it, word for word, "Surprise. I'm leaving you for someone who isn't a disappointment." The whole room went dead silent. Her dad? He started laughing like it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. And I just stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of what on earth was going on. Her dad actually said out loud, "We never thought she'd really go through with marrying someone so beneath her. Glad she finally came to her senses." Then Amanda pushed the envelope into my hands. It was divorce papers already filled out, just needing my signature. Her mom popped a champagne bottle right then and started pouring glasses for everyone like this was some kind of sick celebration. I don't know what kind of reaction they were hoping for. Maybe they thought I'd cry, or start begging, or throw a fit. But instead, something in me just switched off. I looked around the room, saw all their smug faces, looked at the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, and I felt nothing. Like I was watching it all happen to someone else. I asked Amanda for a pen. Her smile twitched a little. Guess that wasn't what she expected. Her dad handed me some expensive pen he was clearly proud of. I walked over to their spotless marble counter, laid the papers out, and signed every page without saying a word. No one else spoke either. The only thing you could hear was the scratch of the pen and someone awkwardly clearing their throat. When I was done, I looked straight at Amanda and said, "Thanks for the birthday gift. Best one I've ever gotten." Then I left. Didn't yell, didn't slam anything. Just walked out while they stood there, completely stunned. The look on their faces when I didn't fall apart almost made the whole public humiliation worth it. I got in my car and just started driving. No plan, no destination. Ended up at this rundown little bar where nobody knew who I was. I sat down, ordered a whiskey, then another. As I stared at my phone, the text from Amanda started rolling in. Why didn't you say anything? Are you really not going to fight for us? You're just proving my point by running away. A few drinks in, something started to shift. The numbness faded, and this cold, clear anger started to settle in. Not the kind that makes you punch a wall or yell at strangers. This was different. This was the quiet, focused kind that makes you want to dismantle someone's life, piece by piece. See, what Amanda and her family never realized was just how much I'd picked up over the years. 5 years married into a family that treats their staff like background noise. You hear a lot. You notice things. Like their drunk accountant at parties who can't keep his mouth shut about shady tax tricks. Or the cousin who's secretly hooking up with her own sister's husband. Or Preston's so-called business trips that didn't seem to include much actual business. So that night, I did 3 things. First, I called my buddy Dean, hands down the sharpest divorce attorney I know. Second, I started screenshotting every suspicious text Amanda had sent or gotten that I could find through our shared cloud. Third, I made a list of every mutual contact, business folks, family, friends, who needed to hear my side of the story before she had a chance to spin hers. I didn't go home that night. Slept on my friend's couch. Woke up the next morning to a phone full of new messages from Amanda. They'd changed tone. Now they were panicked instead of smug. I guess she thought I'd come crawling back, begging for another chance. Instead, by lunchtime, Dean had already filed our response paperwork. I moved fast. Took out my half of the money from our joint accounts, didn't touch hers. I'm not that kind of guy, and rented a storage unit to stash everything important. Did all that while she was probably sipping mimosas at brunch with her family, laughing about how crushed I must be. It's been a week now. I'm staying in an Airbnb while I figure out the next step. Amanda's been blowing up my phone, going from smug to confused to full-on angry to desperate. Her last message said, "This isn't how this was supposed to go." No kidding, Amanda. None of this was supposed to go like this. Dean says I've got the upper hand here. Thankfully, we don't have kids, and most of our major assets are in my name. Plus, I've got plenty of proof of her affair. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, she's been seeing her coworker Chad for months. Makes all her little comments about me being a disappointment pretty laughable now. So here I am, taking things step by step. Still angry, sure, but now that anger's got direction. Her family spent years treating me like I was nothing. Like I didn't belong. And they threw a party to celebrate the end of my marriage like it was a holiday. They have no idea what's coming their way. So, it's been 2 months since that nightmare birthday party. Let's start with the bomb I stumbled. I was digging through the shared cloud storage Amanda and I used, trying to download some old photos I wanted to keep before she had a chance to erase them. And I came across this random folder labeled Work Presentation. That immediately raised a red flag, since it was created right around the time she started acting shady. Being the suspicious guy I'd become by then, I clicked it. And no surprise, it had nothing to do with work. Inside were hundreds of screenshots of messages between Amanda and Chad, her coworker. These went back 8 months. There were sweet nicknames, hotel meetup plans, and more heart emojis than I knew existed. Just a tip for anyone cheating. Maybe don't save all your receipts to a shared cloud account. There were even selfies of them at places Amanda had told me she was working late. Guess she wasn't crunching numbers after all, unless Chad's six-pack had something to do with quarterly earnings. I forwarded everything to Dean, my attorney. His reply? Christmas came early. That guy is a shark, and honestly, I love it. That was the first big discovery. After the shock wore off, I made 3 decisions. First, I needed to focus on rebuilding my own life, not just getting revenge. Second, I wasn't going to communicate with Amanda anymore. Everything would go through Dean. And third, I'd start quietly putting together a new life. One that would make her regret ever thinking I was beneath her. The apartment we'd shared was full of too many memories, so I found a temporary place with a short lease. Nothing flashy, but it had a little balcony where I could finally see the stars at night. That first evening, I sat out there with a cold beer, looked up, and realized I hadn't felt real peace in a long, long time. I also started going to the gym regularly. Not just to get a revenge body, though. Yeah, that was part of it. but because I needed a place to pour out all the anger. That first week, I could barely lift without my arms shaking like wet noodles. But now, I'm starting to see real progress. Turns out biceps make a great storage place for frustration. Meanwhile, the divorce has been interesting. Amanda thought she was walking away with half of everything and alimony, too. Claimed she gave up career opportunities for the sake of our marriage. When Dean heard that, he actually chuckled. Turns out it's tough to argue that you sacrificed your career when your work time was spent sexting your coworker instead of, well, working. The affair evidence became our secret weapon. Amanda's family had always acted like they were some model of moral virtue. Her dad, Preston, loved to post long, self-important updates on LinkedIn about family values and business integrity. But the second they realized this affair could become public knowledge in court, suddenly they were a lot more cooperative with Dean's terms. One strange moment happened while I was finishing up moving out of our old apartment. I was just grabbing the last of my stuff, and Amanda showed up, completely out of the blue. That was the first time I'd seen her in person since the whole birthday ambush. She looked different. Hair messy, no makeup, and wearing sweatpants, something she never used to wear, even around the house. She launched right into this speech about how she'd made a huge mistake. Said Chad wasn't the guy she thought he was. Tried to hint that maybe we could talk things through, start over. I didn't say much, just walked past her holding my box of stuff and told her if she had anything to discuss, my lawyer would be in touch with hers. The look on her face, like she couldn't believe I wasn't throwing myself at the chance for a second shot, was something I'll never forget. Honestly, priceless. So here's where things stand now. The divorce is nearly finalized. No alimony. Thankfully, thanks to the solid evidence we had on her affair. We agreed to sell the apartment and split the money, though I let her keep most of the furniture since I wanted a clean slate anyway. I've started reconnecting with old friends, folks Amanda never liked. Like my buddy Derek, who she once called a bad influence, because he brought grocery store wine to dinner instead of something from a boutique vineyard. Turns out, Derek's still a great guy. We've been hanging out every week for board game nights. I also decided to finally give that little side business idea a try, the one Amanda used to roll her eyes at. I've always loved fixing up vintage furniture, so I started customizing pieces and listing them online. Made my first sale on Etsy last week. Only cleared about $23 after costs, but you know what? That felt amazing. Now here's where it gets a little juicy. Amanda's family runs a high-end real estate development firm. Lately, they've hit a few bumps. Apparently, a big commercial project of theirs lost a key investor. Funny thing, that happened not long after I had lunch with an old college roommate, who now works for that very same investment company. Did I bring up Amanda or her family during lunch? Nope. But did I accept his LinkedIn request after the meal? Absolutely. Even Amanda's sister, Claire, the only one in that family who ever treated me decently, reached out. She told me Amanda's been a total mess. Apparently, Chad dumped her after her dad tried to pull strings and get him a cushy role in their company. Seems Chad was only ever interested in the family connections, not Amanda herself. Shocking, right? Her once constant Instagram updates about her picture-perfect life? Radio silent. Meanwhile, I've been posting the occasional snapshot. Hiking trips, furniture projects, game nights. Nothing flashy. Just me living life. Funny thing, her best friend accidentally liked one of my posts at 1 a.m., then quickly unliked it. So yeah, they're still watching. Last night would have been our anniversary. I was sitting out on my little balcony, scrolling through Twitter and feeling surprisingly okay, when my phone lit up. It was a text from Amanda. She wrote, "I know you probably hate me, but I can't stop thinking about what could have been if I hadn't ruined everything. I miss your terrible jokes. I miss how you always made coffee for both of us, even when we were mad at each other. The apartment feels so empty. Chad was a mistake. My family was wrong. I was wrong. Please, can we just talk? I'm not above begging." I stared at that message for an hour. Typed out a dozen responses. Deleted every one. In the end, I just put the phone down and went to bed without replying. Thing is, a few months ago, I would have given anything to get a message like that. Now, I don't even know what I want anymore. The anger's still there, but it's not controlling me like it was. It's just quieter now. When I woke up this morning, there were 5 more messages from her, each one more desperate than the last. The final one simply said, "I'm parked outside your building. Please come down." I looked out the window, and sure enough, there she was. sitting alone in her white BMW, just staring up at my building. I closed the blinds and made myself some coffee. So now I'm sitting here wondering, what would you do? Part of me's curious, wants to hear what she has to say. But there's another part that knows opening that door, even a little, might undo everything I've worked so hard to rebuild. There's a small, petty part of me, one I'm not exactly proud of, that kind of wants her to feel what I felt that day in her parents' living room. Life's funny like that. A few months ago, I thought my whole world was crashing down. Now, I'm starting to believe that maybe what's coming next is actually better than what I had. My ex-wife Amanda served me divorce papers on my birthday, in front of her entire family, who literally popped champagne to celebrate getting rid of me. Real classy. Anyway, it's been 7 months to the day since that little celebration. A lot has changed. I moved out of that short-term rental and into a real house, not a mansion or anything, just a decent 3-bedroom place with a backyard. And yeah, I'm finally getting a dog. More on that later. The divorce was finalized a couple of months ago, and surprisingly, it wrapped up without too much extra drama. Once Dean, my lawyer, dropped the affair evidence on the table, Amanda's family's attorney folded faster than a cheap lawn chair. No alimony. No drawn-out battle. My little furniture side hustle's been holding its own, not enough to quit my day job, but it covers my coffee habit and a few subscriptions. I even have some repeat customers now, people who specifically want pieces in my style, which is pretty wild, considering Amanda used to say my work looked like yard sale leftovers. Anyway, last Thursday night I was having a chill evening. Ordered a pizza, watching that new Netflix show everyone's obsessed with. It's honestly not great, but I'm too far in to stop. Around 11 o'clock, I get a Ring camera notification. Figured it was another neighbor stumbling home drunk and hitting the wrong house. But when I checked the feed, I saw Amanda's car parked across the street. Lights off. Just sitting there. At first, I thought she might be dropping someone off, but after an hour, the car still hadn't moved. I ignored it and went to bed. Tried to, anyway. I couldn't fall asleep knowing she was just out there waiting. By 1:30 a.m., I checked again, and yep, still there. That's when the text started flooding in. Jake, please, I know you're home. I just need 5 minutes. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I've made a huge mistake. Then came the message that actually made me sit up and swing my feet to the floor. I've been sleeping in my car for 2 days. I have nowhere else to go. I walked to the window, and there she was, slouched in the driver's seat of the same white BMW her dad gave her for her 25th birthday, the one she once called entry-level, even though it cost more than I used to make in 6 months. I stood there, debating. Part of me, the stubborn part, wanted to close the blinds and let her marinate in her choices. But I'm not heartless. So I threw on some sweats and a hoodie and stepped outside. The look on her face when I tapped on her window, man, that was rough. Her makeup was all smudged, hair greasy, and she looked like she was still wearing the same outfit from that last Instagram post she made few days ago. She scrambled to unlock the door, nearly falling out in the process. First thing I noticed up close was the smell. Not body odor, but that stale mix of drive-through food and hopelessness you get from living out of a car. Then I saw how thin she looked. Amanda had always been slim, but now she looked hollow, like she hadn't eaten properly in a while. She started rambling right away, crying, half-talking. Took me a minute to piece it all together. Turns out, Chad, her affair partner, wasn't just cheating with her. He was also secretly leaking her family's business info to a competitor. When her dad finally caught on, he fired Chad, who then ghosted Amanda and walked away with confidential documents. But wait, it gets better. Amanda, in her genius, had been covering for Chad at work, fudging numbers and reports, tweaking data to make him look like a star employee. She was head over heels for the guy, so when the truth came out, her dad hit his limit and cut her off completely. No more job, no more allowance, no paid apartment, nothing. Turns out her last roommate kicked her out for not paying rent, which is how she ended up parked outside my house, sleeping in her car as a last resort. I asked her, kind of surprised, why she didn't just go stay at her parents' mansion. That's when she dropped a bombshell. Her dad Preston's company was under investigation for financial misconduct, stuff that Chad, of all people, had helped bring to light. Apparently, Mr. Ethics and Integrity had been cooking the books for years. Their assets got frozen, and they had to seriously downsize while the investigation played out. The irony of it all, it almost felt too perfect. I told her to come inside. Not because I was thinking about letting her back into my life, but because it was cold, and the last thing I needed was to wake up to news that my ex-wife froze to death outside my house. She stepped in and immediately teared up again, this time going on about how nice the place looked. It's nothing special. Basic furniture, a few potted plants I've somehow managed to keep alive. But compared to living out of her car, I guess it felt like a luxury hotel. We sat at the kitchen table, and I made us some coffee while she started talking. The whole story came out, like a dam finally broke. Her parents had pressured her into the divorce after finding out about Chad, telling her she could do better and still walk away with half of what I owned. The birthday ambush? That was all part of the plan, to humiliate me into signing without a fight. She admitted she'd realized not long after that she'd made a huge mistake, but her pride kept her from reaching out. Then she hit me with a line I'll never forget. "I thought you'd fight for me." I couldn't help but laugh. Not to be cruel, but just at the sheer absurdity of it all. She tears my life apart in front of a room full of people, tells me I'm a disappointment, serves me divorce papers on my birthday, and expected me to what? Chase after her? Plead for another chance? I looked at her and asked what exactly she wanted from me now. She broke down again, said she wanted to try again, said she'd learned a lot and grown over the past 6 months, that she had no job, no money, nowhere else to go. Her expensive degree didn't mean much without her dad pulling strings. And now she was hoping I'd let her stay while we, as she put it, figured things out. I let her say her piece. Then I did something that even surprised me. I thanked her. I thanked her for leaving, for making it so clear who she and her family really were, for giving me the push I needed to build a life that was actually mine. The last months hadn't been easy, but they'd been freeing. For the first time since we met in college, I was making decisions based on what I wanted, not what would impress her family or keep her happy. She looked at me like I had 2 heads. Then came more begging, more tears. She'd do anything to make things right. Said she finally realized what she had. I told her she could stay on the couch, just for one night. It was late, and I wasn't about to send anyone back to sleep in their car. But in the morning, she needed to start figuring out her life, without me in it. Her expression said it all. Total disbelief. I don't think anyone's ever told Amanda no before. The next morning, I made breakfast. Just scrambled eggs and toast, nothing fancy. But that's what decent people do. While we were eating, her phone rang. She answered and put it on speaker, probably out of habit. That's when I heard Preston's voice for the first time since that birthday disaster. Only this time, there was no smugness, no arrogance. He sounded desperate. He said their business was hanging by a thread. Investors were pulling out. They needed someone with industry contacts, and apparently Amanda had mentioned that I'd been doing pretty well lately. Then he actually asked if I'd be open to meeting with him, to discuss a mutually beneficial opportunity. I nearly spit out my coffee. The same guy who once laughed at me for not being good enough for his daughter was now, basically, asking me for a favor. Amanda looked over at me with this strange mix of hope and embarrassment in her eyes. I told Preston I wasn't interested in any kind of business deal with him, but I did know someone who might be able to help. Her name's Rachel. We've been seeing each other casually for the past month. Just friends so far, but honestly, it's the most healthy, drama-free connection I've had in a long time. She's smart, like really smart, and she specializes in helping struggling businesses clean up their image and rebuild from the ground up. There was a pause on the line, and then Preston asked for her contact info. I gave it to him, ended the call, and turned back to Amanda. That's when it seemed to really hit her. Not only was I not letting her back into my life, but I'd already started moving on. An hour later, she left with a backpack of her essentials and took an Uber to her sister Claire's place. Claire had agreed to let her stay for a little while. As she stepped out the door, she turned and asked if I'd ever be able to forgive her. I told her I already had. Not for her, but for myself. Holding on to all that bitterness, it drains you. And I've got better things to spend my energy on now, like sanding down a table in the garage, or going to the shelter to adopt a dog. Speaking of which, meet Rocky. He's a rescue pit bull with 3 legs, a sloppy tongue, and a thing for stealing socks. Adopted him last weekend, and he's already ruined one cushion, but I don't even care. Best decision I've made in a long time. So that's the last of it. That whole wild ride with Amanda, from the champagne toast at my own divorce ambush to her sleeping outside in her car just 7 months later. Life really doesn't pull any punches. I don't know what's next for her, and honestly, it's not my problem anymore. I hope she figures herself out. I hope her family learns something through all of this. But more than anything, I'm just excited to finally start living life on my own terms. I'm traveling where I want without worrying about fancy hotels. Building furniture in the garage without being told it's beneath me. Letting Rocky shed all over the place without stressing about it. Just doing the things I never felt like I was allowed to enjoy back when I was constantly trying to fit into their perfect little world. And to those of you who've stuck around through this whole wild story, thanks. For the advice, the encouragement, even the tough love when I needed it. It meant more than you know. Anyone else ever make it through the worst season of your life, only to realize it might have been the best thing that ever happened to you?